Hi, happy Monday. Um, I am going to be trying to do these weekly and to combine videos also with a blog on my post, which may have a slightly different take on a theme. But I want to get right to it because I want to make these short and sweet. And today's theme is releasing the attachment to the outcome of everything. I'm going to say that again. Releasing the attachment to the outcome of everything. And what do I mean by that? So I think in an earlier chat, I talked about journeying with my book and how I had written several different versions, and I had a lot of fear at one point about putting the book out and what people would think and how, family and friends would respond. And then I also had this idea, I started to get pulled into this idea that it needed to be more marketable, and I had shown it to a couple of literary agents at a literary agent speed dating situation at a writers convention, and I was getting a lot of similar feedback like, oh, if you want to make it marketable it has to be this, or Morgan's not a very likable character, and all this kind of stuff. And I started listening to that, and so I rewrote the book a couple more times, at least 2 times that I can think of. I'm starting to lose track now. And I realized that that's not what I wanted to do in the end, right? That I was then becoming attached to the outcome. Before I had been fearful, so I had been attached to this outcome, that the outcome might be bad, that people might reject it or reject me. So I had to release the attachment to that possible outcome, and that is possible, but I can't control what other people think, and I can't worry about it, right? And then I realized I had to release this attachment to the idea that the book would sell, right? That anybody would buy it, or that they would think it was a good story, right? I realized I would not be able to stay sane and ever put this book out if I didn't let go of the idea that anything in particular, one way or another, good or bad or indifferent, was going to happen to it once I released it. That I didn't have control over what happened to it once I released it. And that if I had given it my best effort and done it with the highest and purest of intentions, even if that's just to tell a good story, or with the intention of just reaching this particular goal of putting together a book and seeing the whole process through, right? Because that's an important point that I'll come back to, and that's that the idea of releasing the attachment to outcome does not mean that you don't have goals, right? It just means that once you've done something, whether that's a presentation in your office or smiling at a stranger, right, in the park, that you are not attached to getting anything in particular back, good, bad, or indifferent. So if you smile at somebody, you're not smiling at them because you're expecting them to smile back at you. You're smiling at them because you have this joy that's just emanating out of you and you want to smile, right? So so that's a very simple example. Spending 9 years writing a book and releasing the attachment to the outcome of what happens to it when you put it out is a slightly maybe more complicated and time-consuming version or way of situation. And then the idea of when you make a presentation, once you make that presentation at work, for example, you don't have any control over what people think about it, what they think about you, you have done the best that you can, right? As long as you've done the best that you can, that's all you can do. And then you have to let it go. And then let's hear you say it, release the attachment to the outcome, okay? You let that go because you don't have control over that. Once you send that smile out into the world, once you send that painting out into the world, once you send that poem out into the world, once you send that presentation out into the world, once you send anything out, once you have any interaction with anybody, anytime we have expectations about the outcome, there's the chance, right, of being disappointed. Or there's the chance that we won't start at all. Because I think so often what happens is that we get so tied up about what might happen, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And a lot of times that gets tied up in fear as much as anything else, but it also gets tied up in what if this really went somewhere? What happens then? That can be scary too. when we get all, and what this is when I, what I call, what I call it? I call it the vortex, right? When we start vortexing about it, we start thinking in circles about it. That's when we stop and we don't do that thing, right? That's when we don't smile at somebody. That's when we don't volunteer to do the presentation. That's when we don't put that piece of poetry out. That's when we don't, show someone our painting or dance or whatever, right? I was thinking of Karen Carpenter today. Sing a song, right? Doesn't matter if it's not good enough for anybody else to hear, just sing a song. That's the whole idea. Because when we release our attachment to the outcome of anything, whatever it is that we may want to do, we allow ourselves the space to play, right? So for instance, I was working with a client the other day, and there's something that they would very much like to do, and there's grant money out there for it. And they have a job. They don't need this. It's not, it's not going to make or break them in any way, shape, or form. But the suggestion that I made was, why not just write the grant for the hell of it? What do you got to lose? Some time, some effort, a weekend, whatever it is. Why not? The money's out there. What would happen if you got it, right? But if you don't, you've lost nothing. Right? So having that sort of playful attitude, having that allows you to, I think, expand the ideas of the things that you might try. If you're not worried about whether or not you're going to be good at it, or whether or not you're going to be successful, or whether or not it's going to work out, it doesn't matter, right? Because you're not attached to the outcome. You're just having fun, right? You're smiling at somebody for the hell of it because you feel joyful. And believe me, if you're playing and releasing your attachment to the outcome, you will be smiling at people more because you will be more joyful, right? That I can promise you. So that's what I have today. I hope that made some sense. I do want to make the point though too that it's not. I want to reiterate the point, one, that it's not that you don't have goals when you release the attachment to the outcome of something. You have goals, you do your best with good intentions, and then you release it when you put it out there, whatever that thing is. When you achieve that goal, when you get there, then you just say, okay, I did that. And I'm proud of myself for doing that. And if something else good comes of it, great. But if not, I know that I did this and I feel good, right? So there's that. It's also not about being cynical. My friend Wynn, we were having a conversation with my mother last night and talking about her being a bit of a pessimist and the idea that a pessimist is always proven right or pleasantly surprised, right? So this isn't about being cynical or pessimistic. It's not an idea that if you always assume the worst, it can only go up from there. Although I guess that's a position to be in. It's better than some other options, but even better to say, hey, I don't know what great thing might happen that I can't even imagine. If I just do this thing that I really enjoy, then I've just done something that I really enjoyed. So then you enjoyed the process and it doesn't matter what happens, right? But there's no need to be cynical about it and say, oh, well, I did that for nothing, because you didn't do it for nothing. You did it because you enjoyed it, right? You did it for the love of doing it, or because it was something fun or interesting, or because you learned something, right? Or you got a thrill. So it's not about being cynical. It's not about not having goals. It's about having fun. It's about playing. And it's about allowing yourself that space to do that because you're no longer worried about what happens when it's done. Because, I want to hear you say it again, you've released your attachment to the outcome, right? So that's what I have today. I'll also be writing a blog, which I'll put on leeladas.com soon. This video will be on there too, as well as on YouTube. And I guess Facebook, since that's the first place I usually put it these days. Anyway, wishing you all the best. Have a great Monday. Oh, one other point. Part of this releasing the idea of releasing the attachment to the outcome of everything is can also be applied to COVID, right? Because right now, I think a lot of people, and again, this is referring back to the last video about like swimming for that island. If you're attached to this idea that things are going to be a certain way at some point in time, that again, potentially difficult, challenging. So it can apply in a lot of different ways. Release, or I invite you to try releasing your attachment to the outcome of everything. Have a great Monday, or a great week, or a great whatever day it is that you see this. Bye. Now I have to figure out how to turn it off.